All right, I guess that's close enough to 8 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. Board Secretary.
Yes, sir. Good morning, board staff and members of the public. After my statement, the chairman will open this meeting and explain the rules for this electronic meeting. Please keep your microphone on mute when you are not speaking. The technical support team may proactively mute participants if the microphone is picking up background noise. Board members should check to make sure the microphone is not muted before speaking. You may text me at 540-336-3948 at any time during the meeting if you need technical support, and an IT tech will call your cell phone to assist. I now turn the meeting over to Chairman Sultan.
In accordance with the governor's state of emergency declaration and executive orders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors Continuity Ordinance and General Assembly 2020 Budget Amendments 28 and 137, Loudon Water will meet today in an electronic meeting. In compliance with these special procedures, only action items necessary to continue operations of Loudon Water and the discharge of its lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities will be discussed during today's meeting. Reports and other meeting information are available on board docs. Public notice and meeting access information was provided on the Loudon Water website. A recording of the meeting will be available at this link, www.loudonwater.org/virtual-meeting-recordings. Board members wishing to speak are reminded to press unmute and identify themselves by name so that staff can accurately capture comments. All items will be recommended to the September 9th, 2021 board meeting. The board secretary will now take a roll call attendance of the committee members.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sultan? Mr. Bonfils?
Here.
Mr. Moody?
Here.
Ms. Sursakar? Ms. Sursakar is absent. And I'd like to acknowledge that Chairman Koblis is also attending.
Don't you have to call me my name too?
I called you first.
Oh, I didn't even hear it. Okay. Okay.
But we can see.
Vote. What's that?
I said, but we can see you.
Oh, good. Can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
This is Keith. I motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second the motion.
All right, roll call. Mr. Sultan?
Here.
Mr. Bonfils?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
And Ms. Sursakar? Absent. Thank you, sir.
Okay, let's move on to action items. The first action item is approval of planning task order for Unison feasibility study.
Good morning. Good morning to the committee, and thank you for having me. My name is Andrew Beattie, and today I'll be presenting on the feasibility study for the community of Unison. So before I get started, before I dive into the specifics of this project, I wanted to highlight that this study is being conducted as part of Loudon County's water and wastewater program. You may recall that Loudon Water partnered with the county to establish this program back in 2015, and with the purpose of allowing communities to come forward and to apply for assistance with any water or wastewater deficiencies that they are experiencing. A major responsibility for Loudon Water is that we are the technical lead and responsible for conducting these feasibility studies. And I will mention at this stage that, as outlined in the program, and as with all the previous studies we've conducted as part of this program, Loudon Water will get reimbursed for this work as it moves forward. This table just highlights just briefly some of the previous projects we have conducted as part of the program. You will notice that we have assisted quite a wide variety of communities over the years, including the town of Hillsborough and the village of Payne Springs. And just last year, I presented on the village of Waterford, and that study is currently still ongoing. But today, the focus is on Unison. So a little bit about the background and existing conditions of Unison. Unison is a small community located about 2 miles north of St. Louis. They applied to the program in early 2020, expressing concerns with both their water and wastewater systems. They are a relatively small community, approximately 35 parcels, will be included in this study area, and those are mostly residential in nature. Property owners have expressed that they experience seasonal fluctuations in their well yields, and there is a general concern over the long-term viability and sustainability of their individual wells. And in terms of the soils, or in terms of the wastewater systems, poor soils have been noted, and there is a concern with these aging systems reaching their end of life about siting new drain fields or finding the space required on these smaller lots. So those concerns are prevalent in this community as well. It's also important to note that this is a historic community, and that is of significance to the property owners, and will be borne in mind as this project moves forward. I like this slide because it speaks to a lot of the successes we're beginning to reap since we first partnered with the county in this program. And we've incorporated a lot of the lessons learned throughout the years in how best to engage with these communities, the communities of need, and that is demonstrated by their willingness to come forward and apply to the program and trust that we can provide assistance to them and help resolve their issues. And we've seen this already, even in scoping the work for this project. Loudoun County staff and the Loudon Water team, we have communicated frequently with the project coordinators, who are community members, and we do this in order to really listen to them, to let them bring forward the concerns and raise any issues from the community, let them know that they're being heard and that their concerns will be addressed as the project moves forward. And for us, it gives us the opportunity to really provide that reassurance to the coordinators, to the community, and as well as manage expectations throughout the process, as this is really just the first step in a long journey to solving any of their issues. So we have incorporated a lot of the feedback that we received from those conversations with the coordinators. The county and the county staff and the coordinators are supportive of the scope of work that we have developed, so that's great news. And then as well, with this still being the pandemic still ongoing, we did prepare a pre-recorded presentation outlining the scope of work and the program process, and that has been distributed to the wider community for their benefit and to ensure their buy-in, which we have confidence in, and it's a very supportive of this project. So generally, I've outlined the key elements of the scope of work here, and this is in line with the type of work we have done in previous studies, with the main goals really to document the existing conditions, analyze various water and wastewater options, and then really offer a recommended path forward for the community. One item that I will note is the household survey. Whenever we presented this idea to the coordinators, they were very receptive to doing this work, And we have learned through our experience from previous projects that we actually glean quite a lot of useful information from the individual responses from the property owners, because it is conducted anonymously. So this is just another example of one of the lessons learned from previous projects in this program, how we incorporate that to really get the best end result. So that's some good news. Overall, schedule-wise, we're expecting that this project will take approximately 9 months to complete. For your reference, this is the CIP project snapshot. Really, the two main things I want you to note is that this project has been funded for this year, and that, as I previously mentioned, Loudon Water will be reimbursed by the county for this work. The total fee for this project is $140,500. The style and the scope of this work is similar to previous projects we have done in the program. As we are a partner with the county, we have already shared this this budget with county staff, and they're comfortable with these numbers. And then finally, I'll leave before you the recommended motion here, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions or any questions?
Not for me. It's Jim. So I'm
Yeah,
prepared
this is Keith. I have no question. I'm just curious though, you mentioned the surveys. Approximately how many surveys do you expect to, I guess, distribute, and do you have any sense as what the typical return in terms of surveys?
Yes, so for this project, we will, the goal will be to send out a survey and mail it out to all 35 property owners within the study area boundary. We did do a similar effort for the Waterford project that we did last year, and we got about a 70% response rate.
Okay, so that's a pretty good response. Yeah,
it was a good response rate,
yeah.
And again, that speaks to some of the engagement and the outreach that we have done in the community, to really encourage those responses and to really sort of say that there's a lot of value in it, and that the end results and recommendations from the study just are that much better whenever we have accurate information.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, that is a good response rate. Thank you very much for that information. I have no other questions, Mark.
Can I get a motion to move this recommended motion?
I'd like to move the recommended motion. This is Jim. I'd like to move it to the consent agenda for the next meeting of the Board of Directors.
And this is Keith. I'll second that.
Okay, I agree. We'll forward this to the consent agenda. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
If there are no other questions, I'll take the vote. Mr. Sultan?
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
And Ms. Sursakar? Absent. And I'd like to acknowledge that Mr. Kelly has also joined the meeting. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, let's move on to the next item. Approval of a planning task order for Community Systems Water Master Plan.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here today to present a Community Systems Water Master Plan task order that we'd like to ask for your approval. I'm Darren Geldert. I manage our planning programs within the engineering group. And I'm here today with Kinsey Downs, who manages our community systems.
There we go.
I went too far, probably.
As Darren says, my name's Kinsey. I manage our community systems. I want to extend a big thanks for his intro, as well as to the committee for having me today. Just stepping through kind of what we do and where we are. Loudon Water has 5 independent community water systems that we own and operate. These systems are located along the Route 15 corridor in the county's rural policy area. And of course, that's defined, their location is defined by the comp plan as well as zoning ordinances. These systems are developer built. This means 2 things for me, right? First off, the developer has an intended purpose that they design and construct for. This may change over time, either during their delivery, right? They may want to seek bigger densities, or they may use at after delivery may be different. Also, the design includes some, I guess, best practices and design standards that were used at that time that may evolve over time. In terms of use, you know, we have 940 service connections in these communities, and it's about 3,300 residents. This is an asset management conversation, so I want to just identify the major components. We have 21 groundwater production wells, 11 water tanks, 12 distribution booster pumps, and 1 advanced treatment system. That's the Selma Raspberry membrane plant. Darren, advance the slide for me, please. I included this slide to just highlight our systems and that they're all somewhat similar, right? We have groundwater wells located in the developments that pump water to these facilities where it is treated and stored, and it's pumped into the distribution system for use by our users, by our residents. Though similar, they're different, right? You see the sizes, you see the ages, a lot of things that go into planning for R&R activities as well as triggers for capacities. All these assets and their expected lives are at the mercy of system demands, water quality with associated treatment, and of course the materials used during construction. Darren, please advance the slide. This table right here, just a little more details about the systems. Not going to step through the whole thing, but I want to talk about the max day column. That is a percentage of the permit that the biggest use for a single day in this calendar year has been used. You'll see that there's 100%. Not necessarily a bad thing. However, it is a great trigger to understand community use, as well as if we need to do a deeper dive on the reasons why. Highlighting Beacon Hill, you can see that we have about 100% capacity used this year. It was built in 2002, and we had what I call an R&R upgrade in 2019. We did bring on a new source water, which included source water capacity, but that alone did not increase the permit. I want to highlight Elijah Heights. You can see that under supply wells, I have a 4, then parentheses 1. We have 4 major production wells, and we have 1 emergency well. There are some restrictions on how this emergency well is used, and it really doesn't have the capacity to be a 1-for-1 replacement. So though it does have a great tool in the toolbox, it is definitely a stopgap if we ever needed to really rely on it. And finally, Rokeby. Rokeby is also about a 100% capacity, and it was built in 2008. It's one we're tracking. Mr. Moody, question?
We're not hearing you, Mr. Moody.
I believe you're muted, Mr. Moody. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. In the community system write-up that was a supplemental material, there was a mention about service level goals, current and future. Does that correspond with this, or is there something else that is mentioned or referred to when you mention service level goals? Do you happen to know what that was referencing?
Yeah, so when we speak service level goals, right? You know, if we go back to our early community systems, it may have been a production rate, a water quality, the type of systems, and over time they evolved that we want to be more responsive to our people. So we look to add redundancy, so to approach minimal downtime. We look to have additional tools to fix things as they come up.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious whether there were specific numeric metrics that you were referring to when you mentioned service level goals, or was it more you know, non-numeric values as you just mentioned?
It's the latter.
Okay. All right. Thank you then.
Mr. Sultan has a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how come there's only 1 emergency well, and in the other systems there was no emergency wells needed? What's the issue with that?
Great observation. So real quick, it goes to our approach when we accept these community systems. The other ones have almost full redundant production wells. So for example, Beacon Hill, if one of the wells would go out of service, the system is still fully redundant. That's true for Beacon Hill, Raspberry Selma, and Rokeby. Elijah, to keep costs down for development, we moved forward with an approach that we may have found a source that was good and reliable, but maybe didn't have the capacity. So it's just a small nuance in the way it was accepted.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Darren, next slide.
So you may say, why are we doing a master plan out here? Well, the master plan may address a little bit of the questions you both just posed, but it's also really going to look at kind of the big questions across all the systems and to make sure that they're performing as expected, both that level of service or what was intended in their design, and also what's required, of course, by regulation and by Loudon Water. So we're going to step through all those different parts, the supply wells, the treatment, the distribution, and make sure they're all operating the way we want them to, and then look into the future and say, are they going to keep doing this? Perhaps there's a desire to have a more robust redundancy at all of these and have additional wells. Perhaps there's other distribution upgrades that we could do to help remotely monitor some of this. But basically, we hope for the master plan to help outline and roadmap for us kind of what needs to complete, what projects need to happen out there, what needs to be completed over the near term and over the longer term to help maintain and improve our operations. So this is going to tie in a lot with our asset management data, with our CIP process, and it will also impact some of Kinsey's staffing schedules and how operators actually work out there.
And we have a great positive lesson learned from this. We successfully used what I'll call an asset management focused master plan at Beacon Hill recently. So in 2016, Beacon Hill is one of our earlier community systems. It was approaching its 20-year window where you start looking at replacing some components, primarily electrical, instrumentation, and start looking at how your longer ones are doing. Staff had fantastic ideas on how we can extend the life of this system, but they were siloed, right? It wasn't under one umbrella. So to help achieve this, we partnered with Hazen, and we tasked them with kind of bringing this under one umbrella, one report that we could champion moving forward. Just some quick highlights of what they did. They identified end of life, undersized, and inadequate components. They developed this implementation roadmap. This was in phases. They looked at things that should be corrected today, possibly near term and long term. And of course, we were able to plug this into our CIP efforts, which is a great resource. We have used this roadmap to finish phase 1 and phase 2 corrective actions, and we're always tracking phase 3, seeing if the assumptions still hold true. I'd like to note that this effort was laser focused on needs we needed today and did not look down the road. And just a bit, put a plug in for this, is that it's a big win when it comes to asset management, asset replacement, possibly capacity triggers, when we can start understanding when they will be so we can start plugging the monies and the people in appropriately. Next slide. Oh.
Yeah. So for this project, we worked on the scope of work kind of it mimics what we did at Beacon Hill, and then probably goes a little bit more beyond that. So it's going to start with what pretty much all master plans start with, kind of gathering the data, reviewing the data. How is this designed? How is it operating? Looking through operating reports, hydraulic models, the groundwater studies that have already been done in the area, tying that all together with site visits and staff interviews to make sure that we understand operational strategies and we can put this, a consistent approach across. And then we're going to develop that into assessments of each facility and tie that all together in this master plan, which will really provide us with a good prioritization of projects that are out there, provide us kind of that decision framework so we know what to do next. And then eventually, because this is such a programmatic approach to all of these, this will really streamline our long-term maintenance and operations and help, as Kinsey said, kind of work this into our CIP process. So our schedule for this is, assuming it's approved and we move forward, would be this fall to kick it off and move through the data review, analysis, do operational reviews. That will then transition into the assessment and analysis portion, coming up with then a final roadmap for each of these 5 systems, but all tied together to make sure that we're treating all these systems with the same level of service, to make sure that they're all consistently approached, and try and figure out where we can perhaps, borrow ideas from one system to another. We're hoping to complete this then by spring, summer next year, so we can tie that right into our CIP planning for the following year. We worked on this task order budget actually for quite a while. I'll let Marty jump in if you have a question.
It's probably obvious, but all of these studies assume current groundwater levels. Is there any attempt to predict the future, to see what's going to happen to groundwater levels in the future?
So we will be asking this consultant we proposed in front of you to work closely with our groundwater monitoring program, which is starting to track and hopefully one day predict what they will be.
Okay, just asking. Thanks.
No, part of the stuff that they review on there, you can see it under the data review. This one is the EGGI reports. That's Emery and Garrett. They're our groundwater experts, and really they're experts for Northern Virginia and most of Virginia. So we're working with them to make sure that groundwater is evaluated. But then this will tie in, you can kind of see the scope, how it steps through the same things, develop that analysis, and then tie it all together in a master plan. We actually budgeted originally almost over $350,000 in 65, if you look that up on the CIP sheets. We actually scoped it down a bit to more focus it on what we really thought we needed for these, and to also leverage some of the knowledge that we already have from the Beacon Hill report and from some work that Hazen has done on Selma Raspberry. So in the end, we came up with this $200,000, $220,000 fee. We then also kind of compared that to the ammonia removal process that was currently underway, and it's essentially a wastewater master plan for our community systems. And we found that the fee per facility was very similar. This one came in at $44,000. The ammonia was about $48,000. So we feel real comfortable with this fee and this scope. And with that, I'd like to open up for any additional questions and leave you with a recommended motion to move this ahead.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, can I get a motion?
This is Jim. I make the motion to the recommended motion and to place it on the agenda for the next meeting on the consent agenda.
Okay, I second that motion, and I agree to move it to the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, I'll take the vote. Mr. Sultan?
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Sursakar is absent. Thank you, sir.
Okay, capital construction report.
Good morning, CIP committee, CIP chairman. I'm here to present the second quarter capital construction report. In my report, I'll be discussing the 4 projects listed before you. These are all active projects, And then I'll close the report with the quarterly numbers for the all projects, and then those that were completed during the quarter as well. The first project is the Goose Creek Waterline Crossing Project. This project allows us to deliver water from the Goose Creek Reservoir to Trap Rock. Garney's our contractor, and Garney has completed approximately $3 million worth of work through the month of June, and the total contract value is $4.3 million. The contractor has completed the installation of the water line across the reservoir and has made the tie-in on the Trap Rock side, which is the west side of the reservoir, made the tie-in to our raw water transmission main. They're presently performing work on the east side of the reservoir, where they are removing rock to make the tie-in to allow for the installation of the pipe there as well. Both of these photos are from the east side of the reservoir. The photo on the left is right near the stream of the reservoir bank itself. That's the piping, and then the photo on the right is the contractors removing rock. Because of the proximity of the new facilities and the new pipe to our existing pump station and other facilities, the contractor's having to remove this rock mechanically instead of by blasting, and that takes a lot more time to do. This is all dye-based rock in this area as well, which is extremely hard. Any questions? Okay, we've spoken some this morning about Community Systems Project, and so I'll talk a little bit about our Howardsville project, which is a county-funded project that provides sewer service to the community. Sagres is our contractor. The contract value is a little under $1 million, and through the month of June, the contractor had completed $67,000 worth of work. We are anticipating completion of the project this year. And in fact, this project includes 2,000 feet of small diameter pressure sewer. That's, when I say small diameter, it's 1.5 and 2 inches in diameter. This is not a gravity system, small diameter pressure sewer. And he should be completing the 2,000 feet within the next couple of weeks. Then after that, he will begin work on the individual lots to make those connections. These are both photos of the existing trench work and the installation of the small diameter sewer. Any questions? Okay, the Courtland Sewage Pump Station project. This is the last of 6 projects to incorporate the Courtland Rural Village into our central sewer system. Sargent Construction is performing the work. They've completed about $3.4 million worth of work through the period in a $3.9 million contract value. We are slightly behind schedule, but we are presently in the commissioning phase and operating the pump station and performing testing there. Just a little bit on the history. When I say it's the last of 6 projects, the planning for tying Courtland in began about 10 years ago. So this is the last of 6 projects. We actually incorporated the community into our central sewer system in 2018 with the Phase 2A temporary pump station. We completed a little over 2.5 years ago. And we hope to complete this permanent pump station this year. That's our anticipation, at least. Any questions? These are some photos from Courtland. The photo on the left is the pump station itself. The center photo is the valve vault on the discharge side of the pumps, and then the photo on the right is the actual pump station wet well. These are submersible pumps. We have 2 pumps in this wet well. Each of the pumps has a design capacity of 150 gallons per minute. Any questions? Okay, some key information on our broad run expansion. Courtland is our contractor in this project. Contract value is $76 million, and Courtland has performed approximately $17 million worth of work through the period. So we're actually even. We're at 22% complete in terms of the value of the work performed, and 22% of the contract time has elapsed. So we've got a scheduled performance index, which I mentioned to you a few months ago. We're at 1.14, so we feel pretty good about that. Any questions on these numbers? The contractor's working all across the site. We have 7 separate work areas where the contractor's performing work. So they're literally all over the site. I thought I'd show you a few photos of the equalization tank and talk about the progress there. Photo on the left, I included that in my report, the last report I provided to you. That's from April of this year. And the photo on the right is that same tank, and that photo was taken earlier this month. So you can see the walls are up on the tank, and the contractor has begun forming the dome of the tank there. This tank is 240 feet in diameter, and that dome it has no internal supports. The entire support for that dome is provided by the walls themselves. So the tank is completely open on the inside. The dome top on that tank is heavily reinforced, and it's approximately 2,000 cubic yards of concrete just for that dome.
Mr. Koblis has a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Koblis.
Thanks, Brian. I love your little thing that shows your name on there, and when it was right over top of the $76 million, and I couldn't stop laughing.
What? Okay,
That's all right.
Okay.
Because it says BS, and I was just laughing that it was right over top of the $76 million.
Oh, okay.
But that's not why I'm here. Can you go back to the plan that shows one more back? I think, yeah. Well, back forward. Right, next one. What is the parking structure for?
We have an open parking structure. It's for some of the vehicles that we have housed there. We've got some pretty expensive vehicles that we want to keep protected from the elements.
So is this a Butler building that they're pulling into?
No, it's not. It's not a Butler building. It's a steel structure, but it's open.
I got it. So it's just a roof. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Thanks.
Okay, these are some photos of the equalization tank as well. On the photo on the left, the contractor is spray applying the concrete on the outside, and we call that shotcrete because it's actually shot onto the side. This is not a formed wall, but a shotcrete construction. And the photo on the right shows the scaffolding on the inside of the tank that is used to support the construction of the dome itself. Which is largely plywood and reinforced concrete. Any questions? I've got a couple photos here of the foundation construction at the preliminary and primary treatment facilities. These facilities are actually viewable. They're very close to Loudoun County Parkway. So the work that you see directly from Loudoun County Parkway that's close, that's these facilities. These are drilled piers and foundation caissons, and it's all reinforced concrete as well. You can see the photo on the bottom right is the reinforcing steel that's circular. It goes down into the piers, goes down into the hole, and then there's poured concrete in the hole. And you see that on the top left in the photo. Any questions? I wanted to show you a few photos of the site piping because some of our work is quite congested. The photo on the left shows sanitary sewer, a force main, and reclaimed water line. Now, the sanitary sewer and reclaimed water line were both pre-existing. They were installed years ago, so the contractor had to install the darker pipe, which is a ductile iron force main, under the sanitary sewer and in very close proximity to the reclaimed water line. So we're working in some pretty congested areas to put these utilities in. The photo in the center is the removal of the trench rock for the gravity drain system. And the photo on the right is a sanitary sewer that's being installed. Any questions? This is a photo of our air piping and diffuser system, which is part of our biological process. Okay, when I presented my report last time and also last year when in getting approval of the construction administration services, we talked a lot about risk that we have in this project. And one of the risks that we have in any of our construction contracts is the risk of unforeseen conditions. And we're actually realizing that risk now because we've uncovered some structural deficiencies in some of our existing facilities. And we've also discovered some unmarked electrical and control wiring as well. So I'm going to show you what those deficiencies and the wiring look like in the next slide. These are the existing biological retention basins. We've got exposed steel in both of those. Our contract for this contract requires 3 inches of cover on our columns and 3 inches of cover over the reinforcing steel. So if the contractor performs and the workmanship, it provides the workmanship required under the contract, we should not see this. This was discovered after we emptied these basins, and we believe it was probably never performed. The contractor did not provide the workmanship in the original construction back in 07, 08 when this facility was built. The photo on the right are just some conduit that we discovered in an existing slab, and it was unmarked. So we are making corrections and repairing these walls and covering these to correct this now. But that's costing money. That is all change order work. So we are realizing those costs in this contract. And then on the right, to fix the conduit, we're rerouting that conduit to provide those functions. We did not lose operability in this. We discovered it quickly and we were able to work through it. Any questions? Mr. Sultan?
Does this require an additional inspection throughout the plant where we may have inadequate concrete?
Well, we discovered we discovered this once the basin was taken down. This was construction from years ago, so we're making this fix. But in terms of our inspection now, we believe we have adequate inspection services to prevent something like this happening in the work that we're performing. Right.
Well, what about, I'm thinking, what about in the areas that you're not performing work?
Oh, we're not doing that sort of forensic work to inspect areas where we're not performing work. No.
Should we?
I'll have to think on that. That's not something we've really considered. I mean, we're working in all 3 of these biological retention basins. So this is the second basin, basin number 2. When we finish the work in basin 2 and we drop the level and clean out basin 1, we'll be able to perform that inspection. And then we're going to also look at basin 3. So we're all going to be looking at these basins, but we are performing work in all 3 of these basins. And so if the basins are like this, we'll address that. But I mean, in terms of work in other parts of the plant where we're not performing tie-in work or have no need to perform work, we're not planning to do any sort of forensics there. I mean, I don't know how to really. I hope I'm answering your question, but I'm not sure exactly sure how to even do that really.
I could maybe step in there, Brian, a little bit. But that's a really good point you make, Marty. And I think as Brian noted, it's actually not just these basins. If you looked at the drawing that Brian had up earlier, we're going into many of the existing facilities as a part of this work, and we'll have an opportunity through that work to make observations that have not been able to be made up to this point. So we'll certainly, and we want to, obviously, as a part of our asset management program, probably incorporate some inspections of these types of potential structural deficiencies as a part of those future observations. So that would be rolled into our long-term asset management planning to make these types of physical observations of these various facilities. So But that is a really good point, and we want to begin to incorporate those kind of practices in not just this, but in all of the work we're doing.
Right.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Roddy. I appreciate it. And then I just want to close and saying, I appreciate the board's support for the CA services and which we're providing a lot of inspection on this project now. So we should be mitigating this future risk of this type. So if we're performing work in these basins or performing work and modifying this project in the future, we should be mitigating this sort of risk because we wouldn't accept something like this. Any other questions?
Great report, Brian. I always enjoy your reports. Thanks.
Thank you. I've just got a few key takeaways here, and then I'll wrap up with the numbers. I think we're communicating well with the contractor. We've got the processes in place for RFIs, shop drawings, notices between the parties. All of that's going really well. We're coordinating with the plant. As I mentioned, we're working in 7 different areas, and we're still continuing to meet permit. And so I'm really pleased with how things are going related to plant coordination. I think the quality of our construction has been good. And where we have had issues with the contractor and the workmanship, they've addressed that promptly. Right now, the contractor is showing completion within the contract time. And through this period, through June, we've executed 3 change orders. And so those were all good numbers. These are the numbers for all of the projects. I just want to point out that I'm not reporting any more in terms of photographs on the Horsepen project, Brambleton, or Cedar Crest, because those projects were substantially completed several months ago. I will report that we have moved our staff into the O&M building that was renovated. There's a few things that we're still working through, some issues with our contractor on that project, and we expect to get that wrapped up here within the next few weeks. And then the rest of that I've reported on. I'm told that the Broad Run, the last project, the window and wall sealants was actually completed back in July. So I'll show that as completed in the next quarterly report. Any questions on these numbers? Okay, so for the period, we issued notices of final completion on 3 projects: the Upper Foley generator replacement, the Guilford Station 30 by 12 inch connection, and the Beacon Hill INC project. And our change order rate there is roughly 2%. Any questions?
I can honestly say that you guys do a damn better job than my construction people did when I was at Fairfax. You guys, and I second what Mark said. I enjoy your reports.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. It's kind of tough to report some of the structural deficiencies at Broad Run, but I appreciate your support on that, and we're addressing that. We're going to get that fixed. And if there are no further questions, thank you for your time. Okay.
The spending report, any questions on that?
Yeah, hi, good morning. I'll take a few moments if you'd like, just to make a few mentions about the capital spending report. Since it's the mid-year, we did a reforecast, and that's shown now here on the report. You can see the dashed line representing the new forecast. So let me just mention that through July, our expenditures were about $41.5 million, and you can see at the bottom of the chart, excuse me, that's about 86% of where we were with the original projection of $48 million. So spending is at about 41.5 right now. Just looking back over the last couple of years, that's compared to we've been at about 33, or $30 million in the last few years. So our spending this year is a little bit ahead of how we've been spending in the past couple years. And then if I can flip over here to the next page where we have a little bit of a variance report for the reforecast. So the original capital spending plan budget for this year was $89.7 million. And based on the reforecast that we just conducted, we think that number will now be about $82.5 million towards the end of the year, about $7 million or so lower, or 8% of the original budget. And then you can see sort of that we've categorized that into a few different categories on what the reason for those variances are. And so I think with that, this similar information will be shared at the Finance Committee meeting as part of the overall budget discussion. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer any on this.
It doesn't seem like COVID is affecting you much.
No, we've been able to find our groove and largely keep going. And so I think we're all pretty proud of that. Well, okay, then thank you for your time.
I just want to comment that I appreciate the effort on the presentations, and as usual, they are excellent, and you guys seem to be doing a good job like usual. Are there any other questions or issues or whatever?
No, Marty, this is Keith. I would just like to second your sentiments. It was the presentations were well formed and very informative. So thank you, everyone.
And like I said, these construction guys do a hell of a lot better job than I did when I was in this business. Do we get a motion to adjourn if there are no other questions?
Mr. Bonfils has a question, sir.
Okay.
I'll make that motion in just a second, but I want to think about these reports and our spending and all the information we received today. I really appreciate the detail and appreciate all that information in advance. It does make these meetings go very fast, but they're very important meetings. So thank you again very much. And I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion. Joel, roll call.
Yes, sir. Mr. Sultan?
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Sursakar is absent. Time adjourned, 8:52 a.m. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Looking forward to meeting in person soon.
Yes.